Sometimes I'll be watching TV and I'll catch a documentary on some sort of fancy furniture, usually Japanese furniture. And the presenter will say something like, "All of this grace, all of this beauty, and all without a single nail." And this drives me bananas because one, lots of European and American furniture doesn't use any nails. It's not that impressive. And two, when a craftsperson does put nails into fine furniture, it is for some damn good reasons. Nails have kind of a bad reputation for furniture making, but that's mostly because of these. These are called wire nails. They're literally made out of wire. And at the factory, there's one machine that mashes down the end to make the head, then the tip gets sharpened and they get spit out really fast. These nails are very economical, which is what makes them so popular for carpentry. But they're not great for furniture making because they have a round cross-section. It doesn't hold all that well. So as I'm driving this wire nail into a piece of 2x4, I can drive it pretty easily. But when I go to pull it out, it's also pretty easy to pull out, and it slides out smoothly. That's what makes these not fantastic for building furniture. But what's the alternative? This is what nails used to look like. This first one here is a forged nail. I forged it, so it's not that great, but you get the idea. It's square-ish in cross-section, and it has a mashed over head. From Roman times into the Middle Ages, this is what all nails looked like. Then, a bit later, humans invented a way to factory produce these nails, and these are called cut nails, and they're literally just sliced off of a sheet of steel at a factory. They have a lot of the same geometry as the forged nail, but they're a lot cheaper to produce. This is a standard cut nail. This one over here is a masonry nail, which is basically the same as a cut nail, produced the same way, but these are hardened and they're very slick. So they're not great for furniture making. I think some people get away with them, but they wouldn't be my first choice. They are quite cheap. You can go down to Lowe's or Home Depot and buy a whole box of these for a few bucks. And if you're experimenting with nail joinery, these might be okay. This right here is probably your most expensive option. This is a forged head cut nail, so it's still got the same geometry, but it has a decorative head on top. Now, what's important about these nails is they have a totally different geometry. They're rectangular in cross-section, so they're skinny this way and they're fat this way. They're tapered, and they don't have much of a point on the other end. And all of these attributes make them work totally differently for furniture. As I'm driving this cut nail into this piece of 2x4, it goes in much more slowly. I feel a lot more resistance because it's wedging itself into those fibers instead of sort of boring a hole like the wire nail does. Then, when I go to pull it out, it's a completely different story. I get a ton of resistance and I really have to pull on it. And then when it lets go, it pops free all at once, because that wedging action holds and holds and holds and then suddenly lets go. That's what makes these nails perfect for furniture building. We use cut nails for furniture because of their incredible holding power, but how well do they really hold? Can we put it to the test? Here, I've got a strip of walnut, and I'm driving one nail into each end, into these 2x4 scraps. The walnut looks like it's pulled up a little on the left, but that's just a chip in the wood. Now, I'm going to flip the whole rig over onto these 4 blocks. Now that walnut strip is suspended by just 2 nails. Now we'll add weight. I'll start with a 30-pound anvil. That's holding fine, so I'll add a 20-pound machinist's vise and a 5-pound scrap of railroad track. That's 55 pounds of weight, and those 2 nails are holding it with no trouble. So let's make things a little crazy. I've got another 50-pound scrap of railroad track, and I'm going to add that to everything I've already got. That's over 100 pounds of iron and steel. Those 2 nails are holding on no problem. We can take a close look at the end of the boards. They're not pulling out even a tiny bit. What's crazy is, after all that weight, I still have a really hard time pulling out these nails. The wood actually comes out of my vise, and I can move my bench with this piece, and the nail still won't come out. How's that for strength? So cut nails hold really well, but so what? Screws hold really well too, and we all already know how to use screws. Well, nails have another characteristic, which is they're malleable. They bend back and forth over and over again without snapping. Screws don't do that. Here, I've got a common wood screw, and I'm just going to drive it halfway into this board, and then just hit it with a hammer. This screw doesn't bend. It actually sort of tears itself out of the wood before it flexes. It's a rigid connector, and it can't move back and forth. I could also try this with a drywall screw. We're not supposed to use these for woodwork, but we all do it once in a while. And the drywall screw is much worse. I can bend it over, but when I go to bend it back, it just snaps. It's really rigid and it can't bend back and forth. Now, this ability to move is important because of all the kinds of furniture that are made with cross-grain construction. So here's an example. This is a mitten box I made for my family a couple years ago. There's a video if you want to make your own. And this is a cross-grain style of putting a box together. So the front and back grain go like this, like you would expect, but the side grain is running up and down in the opposite direction. So when the seasons change, this side expands and contracts this way, while the front and the back expand and contract this way, in opposite directions. If I had glued this rabbet joint together, it would have popped open the second the humidity changed. But this thing has been around now for 2 winters, and it is still rock solid, and all the joints are still nice and tight, because as the wood moves, the nails are flexing with the wood and keeping everything together. And you can use that anytime you have 2 pieces of wood that are going to move in different directions. You can use it on big casework if you need to put a back on something. Nails can be the perfect choice for that. It even works for utility drawers, like in a workbench. I've seen a 100-year-old workbench with nailed drawers, and they were still holding together great. The last thing nails are really good for is trim. If you're wrapping a piece of trim around a big piece, there could be underlying pieces of wood going in all sorts of different directions, and they're going to expand and contract very differently. If you glued that molding on, it would never stay. But if you nail it on with small nails, well, they're going to flex back and forth as the seasons change, and that trim is going to stay on pretty much forever. So if we're going to use nails in our woodwork, we have to learn how to size them. And unfortunately, the sizing system for nails is totally confusing. It's based on the penny system. So this is a 6-penny nail. It's abbreviated 6D. And unfortunately, that doesn't tell you easily exactly how long the nail is. It's about the price. So my 6-penny nail would have cost 6 pence for 100 in like 1530. It's a totally archaic system that has stuck around for some reason, and there's no easy way to convert between the penny size and the actual inches or millimeters of the fastener. Now, there's tons of charts all over the internet that tell you the exact sizes, and they're standard, so all the charts say the same thing. The other piece of good news is that you don't need to know the exact length of your nail to know which size you need for your project. What you need is your top board. Next week, I'm going to build an early American blanket chest using rabbeted nailed construction. Here's one of my test rabbet boards that I've been driving nails into. What I need to pay attention to is this top board. It is a 1/2 inch thick. Whatever your top board is, convert that into a fraction in eighths. So 1/2 inch is 4/8. That 4 is the important number. I need a 4-penny nail to make this joint. Since I'm doing it in pine, I'm going to bump that up to a 5-penny nail. So it's really simple. All you need to know is the thickness of your top board, and then you can figure out which size nail you need. Now we know what size nails we need. We just need to learn a little bit about using them for our project. Because nails are wedge-shaped, we can't just drive them right into a board. It'll split right away. Nails need a pilot hole, kind of like screws. And unfortunately, I can't give you an easy rule for figuring out the size of your pilot hole. When you're doing a new project with cut nails, you just have to run a quick experiment. Here, I've got one of the rabbet joints for my upcoming blanket chest project. I've also got 4 nails and 4 different drill bits. I usually start with a drill bit that matches the size of my nail about halfway up. That's a good place to begin, and you can play with it as you experiment. For this first nail, I didn't drill a pilot hole at all, just to show you what'll happen. And that top board splits really badly. Now, I'm going to drill a pilot hole through the top of the board in a couple of different sizes, and they're going to get larger as I move to the right. As I'm driving the second nail, you can see that the wide part of the nail is parallel to the grain of the top board. This is essential. If the wide part is perpendicular, it's going to split the board no matter what hole you drill. Now this second hole still blows out, but much less than the first one, so I'm getting there. My third nail is drilled with a larger hole and doesn't split at all. I sink the fourth and the fifth just to experiment with the bigger pilot hole sizes, and that top board still looks great, but these nails did split my bottom board. So I'm going to pound these boards apart, save the nails because they're perfectly good, and try this test again. Here's my second test, and the first nail I'm driving splits right away. So for my second pilot hole, I'm not just going to drill through the top board, I'm also going to drill a second narrow hole into the bottom board. The problem here is my nails are a little bit too big. I should have used 5-penny nails for this project, but I got 6-penny by mistake. I can still make this work by drilling an intelligent pilot hole and going into that lower board just a little bit. My second and third nails sink cleanly, and now I know exactly how to drill my pilot holes. I'm ready for my project. So this video had a lot of information in it. I might have made nails seem sort of complicated, but the truth is, they're only complicated the first time you use them. After that, you have a quick, solid method of construction, and you don't have to wait for glue to dry. There's also a lot of resources for learning about nails. For instance, a lot of the information in this video came from Chris Schwarz's excellent article in Popular Woodworking that gives you way more details and techniques about how to use nails, much more than I could ever cover in a video. That article is free, and I will link to it down in the description. Using nails also opens up a whole big world of traditional furniture projects. Next week, I'm going to be using this nailed construction to make my traditional blanket chest. And you should hit that bell icon so you don't miss that video or any of my other videos. And if you'd like to support this work, go on over to patreon.com/RexKrueger and check out all the early access, exclusive content, and rewards that I offer for the people who make this content possible. I'll see you next week for the blanket chest. Thanks for watching.